today with Lance Lopez, monster blues guitar player Lance Lopez. It's so great to see you, Lance. Lance Lopez, 17 years old. He's out touring with Johnny Taylor, the great Johnny Taylor. Became the guitar player for Buddy Miles Express for a short time. Played with Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, Steve Lukather, Walter Trout, so many greats, Eric Gales. Lance has worked with great producers, Jay Newland, Grammy winner, Jim Gaines of Stevie Ray Vaughan fame, Fabrizio Grossi, Joe Bonamassa fame there, Steve Vai, just some great people you've been surrounded by, and currently working on another studio record with a longtime collaborator, Joey Sykes.
That's right.
That's exciting to hear, and fans can be a part of that, and we're going to talk about that. That's a really cool opportunity for everybody. Lance, it's always great to see you, man, and it's great to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Now it looks pretty nice where you are, man. It's sun shining. I'm here in Chicago. Not too much sun shining, man. Where are you, in Nashville?
Yeah, no, I'm actually with my family down in Louisiana, as a matter of fact. For the holiday. Yeah, and it's turned out to be a beautiful day today. It actually warmed up quite a bit, so it's a bit odd for Christmas time. It feels like almost springtime.
Yeah, it looks like it, man. It looks pretty inviting, I gotta tell you. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Well, let's start there, man. You're born in Shreveport, Louisiana,
right?
Owned your first guitar at 8, I think it was, and
yeah,
moved to Dallas at 12. You know, I always think of you as a Texas guy.
Right.
And were you raised in a musical family? And you know, did you take lessons and come up like, you know, that musical family kid?
You know, actually, I didn't. You know, it was just something I was drawn to immediately. I mean, from as far back as I can remember. My dad showed me some old footage of Elvis Presley, and that was kind of the thing that set it off. And oddly enough, my father and Elvis were friends and old Army buddies.
Awesome.
So that's what really inspired me. Before I kind of knew Elvis Presley as an icon, I just knew him as like a family friend, you know. And so that was really the inspiration that I just can remember as far back as I always wanted to play music and play guitar. So you know, and my father really supported it. So I was able to, you know, to kind of move forward with his support. So it was really cool, but nobody really besides me was a musician in the family.
Very cool. Now, self-taught? Did you have lessons?
Yeah, I did. Well, I mainly was all self-taught. I learned by listening to records, and oddly enough, when I got my first guitar, my father he gave me a copy of The Great 28, which is an old Chuck Berry record. And I think it was a double album or something. I can't remember, but it was like 28, you know, Chuck Berry's greatest hits or whatever it was. And he was like, if you learn these songs, I'll buy you an electric guitar. So that was kind of the motivation I needed if I wanted to play electric and really wanted to start rocking out. I had to learn all these Chuck Berry songs, which almost were essentially the same song over and over.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. I was just going to say.
Just about.
Yep. But, you know, I mean, that is the epitome of rock and roll, isn't it? And that had to, you know, I hear a lot of that in your playing,
wow.
You know, that boogie woogie rock and roll kind of thing going on, that Chuck Berry thing happening. And you've obviously taken it to the next level. Just incredible, you know, for anybody here listening and watching that hasn't heard your playing, they need to do that like right now. Come back to the video later, get it in your ears. Just a monster player.
Thank you.
Been following you for quite some time, when you did all the records with Groove Yard. I remember those days. even covering some of that stuff. Just incredible stuff throughout your career.
Wow, thank you.
What's the biggest difference in your playing, do you think, from those first records that you cut to, like 2018, I think, Tell the Truth, is your most current work other than what you're working on now. What's your biggest difference in your playing, you think?
As opposed to the earlier records, I was still kind of coming out of being a sideman, and in the early days, and you can hear a lot of the influence of a lot of that music that I had been playing, like you mentioned earlier, Buddy being a big influence, working with being a guitar player in the Buddy Miles Express, and then just working with Buddy Miles shortly before making all those albums. That influence was definitely very prevalent, so it was very had a very complex mixture of rock and R&B and lots of jamming and very, very kind of psychedelic, kind of blues, drenched psychedelic guitar, and so it was just, it was just so great to play and jam and to make records like that in that way. That I think, I began to, wanting to expand the sound and really focus on songwriting, which I feel like that's where the last decade or so of my career, I've really tried to make records that focused on, I guess, more songwriting and a little bit less of the jam aspect, so that we can take that out live, to really focus on some song oriented music. And so I think for the last, decade or so, that's really what we focused on mainly is I began to write with other writers. Those early records, I primarily wrote all the material, produced the material, I produced all those records myself, wrote all the material myself. So I shifted into another phase of my career where, I wanted to write with other writers, or be given songs by writers, and be produced by producers. You mentioned earlier on all the great producers that I've been fortunate enough to work with. It really it kind of took it all off of me, and having that objectivity there was really good, in the fact that I could spend 3 days on one guitar solo, where I needed somebody to say, hey, that's enough, let's move on, and then also to bounce ideas off of and to get objectionable ideas from someone that I really respected. So that's where everything really shifted, from a little less jam oriented into more of a structured, arranged song format. Which, not to say that we didn't have songs, but it was really, there was a lot of loose jamming happening, and so, and which we still do live primarily. I mean, we go on a musical journey live when we play live shows, but for the albums, I definitely wanted to focus more on song structure.
Yeah, and I noticed that. Yeah, it's definitely a little more of a uniform song thing going on, more than a live sounding jam thing. But
right.
I see these live clips, man, and it's just holy cow. It's scorching stuff. It's pretty, the
Thanks,
records
man.
sound great, and they're like say, they're really song oriented, and all that great guitar playing in there. But that live setting is just it's brutal. Do you like it? I mean, I watch these live clips. You love playing live, don't you? I mean, it's
Yeah,
I
I
mean
do.
that the live and studio thing, it just all those songs just come to life. It's pretty incredible. Being on the road, it's a tough thing, being away from your family and all that. But you guys enjoy that live experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's what makes it unique and special when like what we were just talking about, when it's more song oriented on the album and you have the recording and you're listening to the recorded version versus the live version, I think that's what I was mainly, I guess that's mainly what I was looking to do. I feel like with the more jamming type material, it was difficult to take it. It wasn't difficult. It just that it was there on the album already. Where do you take it live? You know? And I think that was what the beautiful thing about doing the song oriented material was, that you know, now it has some place to go when we're playing it live. So, you know, it definitely is where we shine, especially with a good rhythm section and with a good group of guys there. You know, playing in a small band, whether it be whether I'm out with a power trio or a quartet, you know, it lends itself to go on a great musical journey. So you know, we fall into a realm of like a jam band kind of a category, but it's right. Still, you know, hard rock and blues based, you know, music. But yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where I think we thrive, is in the live setting. And so, and it really is enjoyable then to take, you know, kind of a condensed short version of a song, that's on the album, that's a very structured song, and then take it out live and then turn it into this long, big, sprawling kind of musical journey.
Yeah. It's great to watch, man. It really is. I wanted to ask you about your family too.
Yeah.
You have a little girl, I know that, Lily, right?
Yeah.
And your wife, Kayla?
Well, ex-wife.
Okay, ex-wife. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider getting, you know, she was a singer, still is a singer.
She's still a singer.
Yeah, Trans-Siberian and other things. Did you ever consider that band thing, where you had a singer like Kayla or somebody like that? Because you had a singer, you know, right in your house, that does it professionally. Was that ever a thought to like put a band situation together where you play guitar and have, you know, another singer?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something. And I think we tried that. We tried that on a couple different occasions when Kayla and I were together. We definitely, we actually created some really great music. And it was a great band we had, actually. It was almost, and we were going down the road of like Humble Pie and Early Bad Company and Free and all the Faces. We were definitely went down that road, and it was unique because there was a female singer kind of fronting that world. Right. So it really was cool. And it just, we you know, and I've learned from it, not with just Kayla, but dating other artists and other musicians, it can be a little challenging.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, it could be a little challenging. Yeah. So, you know, we didn't pursue, which I wish we would have. We recorded a lot of material that really was cool. But you know, I definitely have wanted to put together other bands with a front man and be a guitar player. I've played in bands like that. And you know, I'm currently in a band called Two Wolf right now. Right. Which is two of the former Blackfoot guys, Greg T. Walker and Charlie Hargret, nice. From Blackfoot. And so we have there's two lead singers. There's another guy named Chris Bell in the band that played with a kid from American Idol, Bo Bice. He was Bo Bice's guitar player. And so it really is nice to sit back and, you know, let someone else kind of front. We kind of co-front the band. Like, he primarily Blackfoot material. We do some of our own material, but it's really cool when, you know, I can step back and be an ensemblist. You know, I went out with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago and actually went on a tour and played bass. You know, cool. I love going out and being a rhythm guitar player. You know, I grew up being an ensemblist. I grew up being a rhythm guitar player and a supporting band member. And for me, what it does is it takes me back to being a musician. It's a different world and a different element fronting a band, especially in a power trio format where it's high intensity lead guitar, singing, playing rhythm and lead, and being a lead vocalist all at the same time.
Right.
There's a lot happening. And for me I like to sit back and become a supporting band member and a musician. It takes me back to my roots. It kind of allows me to then focus back on my pocket chops and being a support blanket underneath. And living in Nashville now, I hang out with a lot of the best guitar players in town that are playing on all these huge big pop country records and they tour with big artists, and all those guys are just burning lead players and everybody wants to play lead. So I'm like, okay, well, give me the bass or let me play rhythm, because everybody wants to just solo. So, and I like being a support guy, because it's like there has to be music involved in here somewhere, as opposed to just soloing. So I love doing it. I love being an ensemblist and a support member, a bass player, a rhythm guitar player, whatever that is, because it allows me to then reconnect with my musicianship and reminds me that I'm a musician first, as opposed to a soloist and a front man.
Yeah. It's all about the song at that point. It's all about the music.
Exactly.
Pretty great. Let's talk about this Indiegogo thing, man.
Yeah.
You come cook for me. How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's great. There's some really cool perks you got going on. This is supporting the next record, right? Tell me.
Absolutely. Well, I was in a band for a while called Supersonic Blues Machine. And this was an idea that was tossed around with them early on, about doing a crowdfunder for an album and a tour. And then it was shortly before I left the band. So I don't think they were very keen on doing it, but I don't think it never happened. And then I left the band shortly after that. So that's when I was first presented with the idea, and something I'd never done before. And so when it came time to do another album after releasing Tell the Truth, and I started to work with Joey Sykes as a producer, we started making the record. And coming out of COVID pandemic and everything that was happening, I got an idea from Al Dimiola, the great Al Dimiola. I was following Al Dimiola on social media, and he was doing these huge meals at his home. And people were coming to Al Dimiola. I think they still do. They come to his house. He had this huge, big, 3 or 4 course Italian meal. He has all these fresh ingredients, and then they hang out in the studio with Al. And so I thought, wow, this would be something that would be great, because, I was a professional chef at one time, years ago. And, and my specialty really was Cajun food, though, being, we're here in Louisiana today, being from down here in Louisiana. That's just the food I grew up with and made and make the best. And so, and I've always, on social media, I'm always posting it when I do make it. So I get a lot of comments from people from all over that want to try it or have never had it, or they want to, so I thought, I melded the ideas and thought, wouldn't it be cool to make food at the same time? And then I just joined you together. So I was already, both ideas were already kind of floating around on how do we do this. And so when we discussed the crowd-funded situation about the new record, that was the first thing I thought of, was how great it would be to do that, and to offer that, as well as a custom song, to write songs for, anybody that wanted to contribute to the album, and then they own the song and own the publishing,
How cool is that? I mean, that's crazy great. So, I mean, what a perk that is.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity here for people, fans, contributors to this Indiegogo campaign. And what is the final product that you're looking to get? You're looking to get an album, a tour, is that full length album, 12 songs?
a full-length album, you know, and in the days of, you know, in the current days where it's like people are releasing singles and EPs, we're going to release a single, but you know, we're still in full-length album mode. You know, it's what we've always done.
Yeah.
It's where we're at, and it's just, you know, it's what we feel like we need to present. So there's a lot of material there. There's a lot of songs that we've written that we feel like that deserve to be on the full length LP. And so we're, you know, as far as physical, I call it LP because we are going to do some vinyl. We're going to do some hard copy stuff in the days of, you know, the previous label I was on when we parted ways recently. That was the conversation, was they didn't know what to do as far as physical copies. Right. And we were very, that blew us away. Like, wow, there's no more physical copies. And so we definitely want to keep the physical copies alive, you know, especially vinyl, you know, and you know, and having an album that takes you on a journey, you know, that is one big body of work that makes a statement that has the continuity of an album. Yeah. So yeah, that's the end result is a full-length album, you know, with singles, you know, released from the record, you know, and then a tour to go out and support it, you know, and so these contributions are going to help us, you know, complete the recording, help us with the recording costs, mixing costs,
and they're huge costs for anybody unaware. You know, and getting a tour together, the logistics of that, it costs a lot of money. It's you know, a lot of planning. For anybody who's not a musician or hasn't been around it, you know, you don't just play your guitar and push record and then go out and have fun. There's a lot of planning and a lot of expense to this. Right.
So that's definitely going to help us to make that happen. And you know, we get all the messages that we receive on social media are, you know, when are we going to get a new record? When are you going to come play in our town? And so these costs are going to help us, you know, these contributions are going to help us cover the cost to make an album and help us support a tour to come back out and play the safest way we can possible.
Yeah. That's way cool. It's cool to hear. You got Joey Sykes, longtime collaborator, working with you. He's producing the record, right? Or co-producing at least. Yeah. Now this is Joey's a little bit different, you know, at least from the outside looking in, he's a little bit different from a guy like Jim Gaines, or, you know, Fabrizio. They're cut from a different cloth, maybe. Has that changed the way you play, the way you approach your music?
This album is definitely going to have more of a rock edge, you know, as opposed to, you know, when I worked with Jim Gaines, it was, you know, especially the first record, it was definitely traditional blues. You know, we actually went back to more of a traditional blues sound. You know, with Fabrizio, it definitely was kind of a mixture of all of it. You know, with Joey, we're definitely tapping into more rock and roll type of a vibe. And, you know, that's what I loved the most about Joey. When Fabrizio Grossi and I worked together, Joey was a writer that was kind of in between Joey and I. And now with Joey and I just working together, you know, it's been really, really great because his approach to writing is there sensibilities there that I don't possess. And then the way that I perform and redeliver the lyric or playing wise is a sensibility that he doesn't possess. I come from more of a blues influence background, soul, R&B, blues, and Joey comes from more of a pop rock, you know, with the pop sensibility of, you know, rock and roll. Right. So blending those two together is something that we've been really excited about. You know, Joey's sense of melody and harmony is incredible, and really key chord changes with his sensibilities are really great. So the blend has been incredible. You know, the blend has been incredible of us. We worked together for years, and he's, you know, had cuts on, you know, the last couple of albums that we've done, you know, 2 of the Supersonic records and then my last solo record. So so it's been really nice to co-write with Joey and have him produce and have those sensibilities there. So we've been working really great together the last since really the pandemic started. And also what it also did is it really pushed me to set up a home workstation. That's what was really great about coming out of everything that we dealt with the last year, was that it really helped me to Joey was the one that really kind of pushed me into recording at home, and that way he could begin tracking tracks in LA and then just send them to me, and I could start just overdubbing vocals and guitars on them. Yeah. And so that was a new process for me, where I was always in a very regimented studio work environment, where it was like, okay, from this day to this day we're in the studio recording a record, or from these blocks of time I showed up to a studio with my gear, went in and played. And so this was new for me, because I recorded where I was living, and I started off in a house in South Nashville that was really cool. We called it the Jam House, and I just started, and it had big vaulted high ceilings, and so we could get in there and crank up the Marshall stacks and get the big guitar sounds. And I was literally recording vocals in my bedroom closet, or just in my bedroom,
Yeah.
And then I moved to it. Now I'm in a different house in Nashville. We call the House of Tone, with a couple other guitar players. And so we've got, same thing. We've got tons of great amps and vintage gear. And it's just so great to sit in there and just dial in tones and cut guitar tracks and do it like that. So it's been, that's been the newest thing for this album. That's been very different from me, doing it very traditionally, where I just show up to a studio with everything. And
yeah,
it's been really cool.
Yeah, and that's really cool too, because of the time we're living in, with
Right.
last year, the year before, we're isolating, not able to go into a studio.
Right.
It makes it really, really great to be able to do that right from your home. It's pretty great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now,
Absolutely.
I've heard Wild Country and Take a Swing. Again, you say House of Tone. Your tone has always been something special on every record. There's a real warm tone, that when you want a warm tone, and then there's that bite when you dig in. Tone is really essential to your recordings, your playing. With this new record, is there one guitar that you go to? Do you play a massive amount of guitar? There's some guitarists who they have their cream colored Les Paul and that's what they play. Are you that guy, or are we going to hear you playing a bunch of different kinds of guitars?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of really of the main guitars on this record. The main one, though, it's been on the last couple of records, is with Supersonic and with my solo records, is the Barton Creek Burst. I mean, my R9 Les Paul is the mainstay. I mean, that's the main guitar. It's a special guitar that the Gibson Custom Shop built for me several years ago, that is an amalgamation of a couple of really special Les Pauls. So it's a very, very special guitar. But I've got the main guitars on. There's also my 65 Pelham Blue Firebird that's all over it. I mean, a lot of the guitars that I play live are what's on there, but the main guitar on the record, though, is the Creaker. We call it the Creaker, the nickname the Creaker, but it's the Barton Creek Burst R9, 1959 reissue Les Paul is the main one throughout the commonality throughout the whole record.
Yeah, cool.
Special guitar.
There's a quote here. I start with Hendrix as a bass, and then add the Delta influence of the 20s and 30s, the Chicago blues of the 50s and 60s, the regional influences of where I'm from, and there you have it. That's your quote. And I have to ask you, when you're writing, do you feel like you tap into one of those styles more than the other? I mean, that is definitely who you are. All of those things are in your playing every time out, really. I feel I get a little piece of those. How do you feel when you're writing and recording? Do you tap into one of those a little more than the other?
It just depends on what we're working on. I definitely, definitely, that is, I agree with what I said there. I agree with myself.
That's always good.
I definitely do that. But I feel like it just depends on, on what we're doing. Sometimes I'll take I'll always defer back to really melodically for me. And that's what I was talking about earlier, like working with Joey, whereas he may come with more of a Beatles-esque type pop melody that's very Beatles-like. I'll be thinking of like Robert Johnson or Son House or Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Waters. I'll have that kind of sensibility. And when you blend the two, it's something, it happens that's special. So that's the difference, is that whatever it calls for, it could be a different variation of that, what I said, with all those different influences. Definitely the blues definitely rises to the surface at all times with all of it. That's one of the key things about it is how do we inject that into good rock and roll, to keep it relevant and make it, to keep it relevant, basically.
Right.
And modern is are those things. So and then the tapping into the soul and the creative expressiveness of Jimmy, of like we talked about, of Hendrix, which that blues based guitar playing that just that ascends to a whole nother level. And I think that's more of the inspiration behind tapping into that power, not necessarily that we're going to play Purple Haze note for note, but the fact of using that kind of connectiveness of ascension with the guitar playing, I think is always the key to great solos. Like you mentioned, the new song Take a Swing, we definitely went there with those type of guitar solos, very spirited, very transcending, ascending type of, intense guitar playing.
Yeah, it always is. It's so great, man. It really is.
Thanks.
Do you spend time listening to other music? Do you usually go back to the older stuff, or is there something newer that you appreciate, that you like, that you listen to regularly?
I do. I listen to a lot of old music. I mean, let's face it. I mean, everything that I do, I listen to classic music, very old, all the good classic rock. And then, but I also listen to lots of world music. I listen to music from all over the world. I listen to from a lot of different cultures, a lot of my guitar playing, or a melody. I listen to, all sorts of music from all over the world. So, and yeah, there's a lot of new artists that I pick up on at times that I think are great. It's just a matter of whatever is present. It's just about whatever's good, whatever connects to my soul. I don't subscribe to the some of those beliefs. Oh, if music before 1980 is the best, or what, it's not about that. It's just that's what's always resonated with me. And I think because I just identify so much with classic music and classic rock and roll, because so much of those artists were blues musicians that kind of transcended to that next level. Much like the same thing that we're trying to do today, being a blues musician and trying to take it to the next level in rock and roll, just trying to do it in modern times. So that music just resonates with me, it's what I connect to. It's what I've always connected to. before I even knew that what it was. You know, I just knew that I was drawn to the blues. You know, spent, you know, a better part of my life playing the blues, but rock was also that big part of the influence too. So how do we meld all that together in modern times, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I absorb from every style of music there is and try to, you know, somehow add whatever I think is great into my, you know, my interpretation of music.
Yeah. That's awesome. I got a couple more for you and I'll let you get back to your family. I so appreciate your time, Lance.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
if you could have coffee with anybody, hang out with anybody for, you know, an hour or so, anybody on the planet, who would that be?
Probably Jimmy Page.
Okay. Big influence,
Yeah,
Zeppelin and his playing.
big influence.
Yeah.
Big influence. And really a lot of it is the you know, is the production quality too. I mean,
Yes.
just really from a producer standpoint, from that era and how they pushed music, you know, how he was able to capture drum sounds and guitar sounds and you know, with the engineers that he had, with the technology that they had to make those
Right.
records sound that powerful and that big. And from a guitarist arranger standpoint, from open tunings, I've began for this next record, I've got a lot of songs that are in alternate tunings and taking along that influence, but also from the Delta blues. So I used a lot of Delta blues tunings, but then kind of, you know, taking that style of influence from that kind of page of that book. So I'm gonna say, yeah, it would just be great to sit down and have some coffee or some tea with Jimmy Page and talk about all those great things that he did.
Yeah. Yeah, and he produced all those records, and you know it's great that you think about that. A lot of people don't think about that. The technology then was, you know, very very minimal, and those records still sound great. You know, the bombast of those records is really really something else.
It's incredible, and that's really what it is. You know, I've had this debate recently with guitar players in Nashville about Jimmy Page's lead playing. I'm not even interested in even going down that road. I'm interested in an arranger, composer, producer mode of where he was at to produce a song like The Ocean
Yeah.
or Cashmere
Yeah.
or anything like that. I mean, that's just from a lead guitar player standpoint, to produce something that great is more what I would be interested in discussing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I got one more for you.
Yeah.
Your top of your bucket list. You've done so much. You've played with so many people. You know, you've had a great, great career. Do you have something that tops your bucket list? That's something that you always wanted to do and haven't done yet?
Man, you know, it'd be nice to play at Madison Square Garden.
You know, I hear that from so many people, and you're not a New York guy. You know, that's how important Madison Square Garden is. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that. You know, somebody like yourself, you know, from Louisiana and Texas, really, Nashville, you know, nowhere in New York, but it's an important place, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And I've recorded a live album. The last live album we put out was live in NYC at BB King's. You know, so
Right.
we played a lot at BB King's Club in New York City in Times Square, which sadly is not there. And you know, it just, yeah, it's kind of a hallowed place, I think, at least for North America. And you know, I lived in New York briefly. I played in New York a lot. I have a lot of dear friends in New York. It's almost a kind of a secondary home, was for me for a long time. And so, you know, I think it'd be a monumental thing to go out on the stage and perform, open for somebody.
Yeah, it's a matter of time, my friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be great. I hope I'm there when you do. Uh,
right on.
Lance, thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your playing. I appreciate you being here, man. It's been a great time. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
Where can everybody find this Indiegogo campaign?
Well, it's Indiegogo, and it's under LL, two L's,
Mhm.
new album project.
All right. LL New Album Project at Indiegogo.com. And
that's right.
Get Lance to your house and have him cook, man. Ex-chef. What more can you ask for, right?
That's right.
And you might even play a few things for him, huh?
Definitely. No, definitely. Full on house show.
How about that, man? Definitely. It's so great to have you. I can't wait. Thanks for the record. Good luck with everything. Happy holidays to you.
Same to you.
All the best to your family as well.
Thank you, Scott. See you soon.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, man.